Hello everyone, this is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Betrayed and Leaves Konoha, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
An icy breeze swept through the air and Shikamaru gulped, as he stared at the menacing mask Naruto now wore upon his face. The fearsome cover bore the look of a bone-like narrow skull with 10 red stripes spread across the top, middle, and bottom left side of his mask. The mouth of the mask appeared as a top and bottom row of elongated teeth. However, the slanted eyes of the mask are what sent a shiver down Shikamaru's back. What had formerly been the white of Naruto's eyes were now obsidian black, while in the center instead of the normal cerulean blue color now were blood red and staring back at the Nara male who asked with trepidation. Naruto, what have you done? Why do you look like that? The missing nin gave his friend a cold stare and he stopped spinning his sword before he twisted it to the right and slammed the blade deep into the ground, causing the road they were standing on to shake momentarily from the impact. Naruto then ceased the chakra pressure he was emitting that was rendering the Inoshika Cho Anbu squad motionless and answered in a metallic echo of a voice. I haven't done anything, yet. And I won't if you don't force me to. Shikamaru. As for why I look the way I do, I figured I needed an appearance to match how I feel. It's also a warning to everyone that Naruto Uzumaki is no longer to be fucked with anymore. We don't want to force you to do anything, Naruto. If you'll just return to the Leaf Village with us, then everything will be less troublesome. We don't want to have to fight you. I'm going to give you and your team a chance to walk away and leave me alone. That's all I want, is to be left alone. If you don't take this chance to leave and try to force me to return to the village, then we will fight. And if that happens, then I cannot guarantee any of you your safety. Shikamaru let out a sigh, but there was a small albeit regretful look on his face that was hiding the worry and concern growing within him, as he somberly stated. You always were troublesome, I suppose, but before we begin our little dance, I'd like to know how you found me so quickly and here of all places. It was troublesome, trying to figure out where you might have gone. The logical choices would have been Suna or the Land of Spring or any of the other places you've become a hero in the past few years. However, I know you're smart and would have already figured out those would be the first places Konoha would look. So I took a chance that you would return to the first land you ever became a hero in. No one would ever consider you returning to a land you hadn't seen in over 12 years. Smart, Shikamaru, very smart. I'm not that smart, Naruto, I just got lucky. Don't sell yourself short, after all you were smart enough to get the girl from me. Shikamaru winced slightly upon hearing this and Ino's breath hitched in her throat and she felt tears begin to well in her eyes. For his part, Naruto remained impassive, as he watched the reactions of his former comrades. A moment later, Shikamaru pulled out a paper scroll and placed his hands onto it. Naruto's crimson eyes narrowed, as he saw the scroll begin to glow bright white and he brusquely commented. A sealing scroll, it would seem that you are serious about capturing me. Naruto's words were cold and harsh, but they also held a tinge of regret, and for just a second, one crucial moment in time, the Nara youth hesitated, as he saw the infinite pain and sorrow in the eyes of his friend and asked, Naruto, why did you leave? Naruto instantly took full advantage of his friend's hesitation and felt he had nothing to hold him back after hearing that question. In a blur of black, Naruto disappeared from everyone's sight, and much like Zabuza's voice had done in the past, Naruto's voice echoed all around him as he shouted with fury and determined where to strike them from. Don't ask stupid questions to which you already know the answer, some of you more than others. My soul was already dead there. It just took my mind and body a while to realize the same. I have no place there and no desire to return to the village, ever. Then his voice took on a more malevolent tone and seconds later his chakra pressure spiked tenfold, rooting the entire Anbu team in place for the second time. In an instant Naruto appeared in front of his friend, crouched down, the air rippling around him from his high speed, and time seemed to slow, as Shikamaru's eyes widened in horror, whilst he watched the masked nin drawing back his blade for a massive swing, and he thought to himself, I guess this is it. Then unexpectedly, Naruto smashed the blunt end of the sword's hilt into the face of his former comrade, but he tempered his blow, controlling the damage so that it was just enough to knock the master strategist out. But it still hurt, and to Shikamaru it felt like a paper bomb had just gone off in his head, as his ear rang from the massive hit and he just had enough time for one thought before the blackness rushed in to claim him. He wasn't trying to kill me. Then the Junin fell like a sack of potatoes, hitting the dirt face first with a soft thud. Naruto seemingly watched the whole thing with disinterest, his face still hidden behind his devilish mask. But in reality, he was concerned for the Nara, which he made evident by kneeling down to place 2 fingers on the neck of the unconscious Leaf Junin. He felt a strong and steady pulse. A second later, Shikamaru would live. The Nara heir would have a headache for a day or 2, but he would live and come away from this little encounter all the wiser for it. But it still saddened Naruto to hurt his friends, even if in some small way some of them deserved it. He now rose to his feet, and strapped his blade to his back, and he absently commented out loud. He's done. Unfortunately, from a distance Chuji misheard what Naruto had said and thought the blonde missing nin had said he's dead. Instantly, the Akamaiki heir exploded in a rage at the thought of his best friend being killed right before his eyes and screamed with malevolence and vengeance. Naruto, you bastard, I'll kill you. Buban Biker no Jutsu. Partial multi-size technique. Naruto gasped in surprise, but he had no time to move, as he felt a pair of hands from Chuji's outstretched arms grab him around his throat, choking him. Naruto struggled to pry the vice-like grip away from his throat, but soon found it futile, as the hands squeezed him harder, constricting his airway and making it difficult to breathe. A deep voice thundered into his mind, dripping with disdain, as the Kyuubi no Yuko spoke to his host. Foolish mortal, see what your mercy towards your pathetic comrades has wrought you. You'll die at this rate, if you don't use some of my power. Despite the fact that he was about to black out, Naruto managed a small grin as some blood began to leak out of his mouth. He had long ago accepted the fact that the Kyuubi would be with him until his death, and now the two had formed an uneasy alliance. The demon fox would give Naruto some of his power in exchange for his vessel, allowing him later on to assume some control and satiate the demon's bloodlust in killing. The agreement had served Naruto well over the past few years, especially on his Hunter Nin Anbu missions where his targets were wanted dead or alive. It had earned the young man the codename Bloody Kitsune within the Hunter Nin ranks of the Anbu. For if you were a dangerous missing nin and Naruto was assigned to hunt you, he never brought anyone back alive. Damn it, fine, give me some power. Naruto silently spat within his mind. The deep resonating laugh of the Kyuubi echoed in his mind, while he received a huge influx of chakra. Naruto immediately felt the rush of the Kyuubi no Yuko's power course through his body. It almost felt as if he were drowning in a sea of raw chakra, as the glorious rush of adrenaline filled his mind and body. Chuji frowned when he saw a red aura begin to leak out from between his tightly clenched fingers, scorching him slightly, as Naruto began to snicker then laugh. Soon, the scorching sensation went from being irritating to all-out burning, and the Akamaiki heir was forced to let go, as he felt like his hands would be burned off. Ah, damn it! Chuji cried out in distress, as he yanked back his hands and fell to one knee while looking at the palms of his hands, revealing the skin to be slightly singed with burn marks about them. He waved the burning palms up and down, hissing in pain, as the air cooled the seared skin, and he thought to himself, his chakra would have eaten right through my hands if I hadn't let go. Then a deep voice boomed out at him, and the mere sound of it sent shivers down the spine of the muscular nin. Hello, Chuji. Now he heard the dark and ominous laughter, and he slowly looked up from where he crouched, and he paled as he saw the masked blazing red eyes of Naruto glaring down at him. It was then Chuji heard a crackling sound behind Naruto and noticed that 3 tails of red chakra had bubbled out, as his former friend loomed over him with malice in his eyes and fury in his soul. So, you thought you could strangle the life out of me, old friend? The word friend he added with spiteful emphasis, before he snapped his knee up and rammed it into the face of Chuji. A crunching sound the moment the knee hit signified that Naruto had broken the Akamaiki heir's nose, causing him to shout in pain, as blood began to leak out. You wanted to kill me, did you? Naruto blurred away when he saw the incoming punch from Chuji, whose left hand passed through nothing but air where the missing nin had been standing mere moments before. The Akamaiki blinked, as he thought the obvious distress. Where did he go? The Leaf Anbu soon got his answer when he felt an elbow slam into the back of his head, sending a shot of intense pain flaring through his skull. Looking for me? Naruto deviously cackled while he watched his former friend eat dirt before groaning in pain, as his nose was broken further. Get up, old buddy, you still want to kill me now, don't you? Naruto hissed, but Chuji made no move to rise, as he felt too weak to even move. Stand up and fight. Naruto screamed at his fallen comrade lying at his feet, but Chuji could only make a feeble attempt to rise. Try as he might, the young Akamaiki pushed off the ground as hard as he could, but to no avail. He was just too dazed and couldn't move properly anymore after only 2 QB-powered hits. Angered, the masked nin began to reach down for Chuji again to continue his attack, but a voice from behind stopped him and he looked over his shoulder. Naruto, stop, that's enough, your fight is with me, not them. Naruto saw Ino standing several feet behind him, her hands thrust forward in a familiar pattern. The blonde kunoiki's blue eyes were narrowed and her mouth was set with grim determination, as she spoke with as much courage and authority she could muster. You're coming back to the village, Naruto, whether you want to or not. Naruto forgot about Chuji and turned his attention to Ino before lifting his head and coldly laughing out loud. Her statement didn't scare him in the least and he could hear the tinge of hesitation and fear ringing within it. Nor did Naruto fear Ino's family trademark attack of the Shintention no Jutsu, mind-body change technique, she was threatening to unleash. Naruto knew with his speed he could easily dodge the slow-moving spirit exchange technique. However, the blonde missing nin decided why bother to dodge the attack if she chose to use it on him and mockingly said to the girl. Go ahead Ino, use that technique. Jump into my mind and see what you and the others helped to create up close and personal. The blonde kunoiki stared at Naruto with tears streaming down her face and her arms shaking before they finally fell limp to her sides and she pleaded in a choked voice. Please Naruto, don't do this. I'm sorry about what happened. Please just return to the village, I promise. Before Ino could even blink or finish her sentence, Naruto appeared in front of her and grabbing her Junin vest with both hands pulled her up to look directly into his glaring crimson eyes and shouted at her with fury. I would think you of all people would have learned your lesson about promising me anything. Please Naruto-kun, I know you're angry with me because of what I did, I mean about my decision, but if you give me a chance I gave you a chance once, I listened to your words and promises just like the other two and took them to heart. And once again I paid the price for my faith and love, but never again Ino, never again. A moment later a large fist impacted Naruto from behind and sent the blonde Jinchuriki flying into a tree. Ino looked over to see Chuji panting heavily and standing shakily with his arm outstretched using his Buban Biker no Jutsu once again. However, before she could say or do anything a stinging laughter filled the air before she heard Naruto spat sarcastically. Not very sporting of you pal to hit me from behind. So, you want to dance with me some more Chuji? That's fine, you want to kill me? Then go for it. Ino let out a shriek of both pain and fear, as she saw Naruto disappear and then reappear driving a fist into her teammate's gut. Naruto then began running circles around Chuji who was holding his bleeding nose with one hand and wildly lashing out with the other in a futile attempt to hit the speedy Jinchuriki. Naruto was laughing like a madman and seemed to take enjoyment at Chuji's pointless attempts to hit him, as he made no effort to attack for with his speed he did not need to. Shaking her head, the Yamanaka girl immediately ran to the side of Shikamaru who was still out cold and showed no signs of waking anytime soon, as thought to herself. This is bad, we're one of the top Anbu teams and Naruto still has us totally outclassed here. Chuji looked to his left and then his right trying to get a bearing on the blurred streak of black swirling all around him moving faster and faster by the second. It was then Naruto mockingly asked. What's wrong? Can't hit what you can't see. As Ino cradled her boyfriend in her lap, she looked on in dismay, as a red claw of chakra slammed Chuji off his feet and into the air. The Akamaiki youth blearily opened his eyes, and what he saw sent a chill down his spine. Naruto suddenly appeared above him, his figure outlined against the light of the sun, as he had his left leg raised up high. Then time seemed to slow, as Naruto brought his leg down and delivered a bone-jarring axe kick onto Chuji's chest that sent the leaf Junin rocketing down to the earth. The Akamaiki fell like a streaking comet and slammed right into the hard and unforgiving earth, kicking up a large cloud of dust that covered him from view. Seconds later, Naruto descended into the dust and another loud thud was heard followed by an agonizing howl from Chuji. Ino was shivering now, as she heard the sounds of a fight in the dust and by the way Chuji was crying out and the laughter from Naruto, the Akamaiki air was losing badly. Naruto was showing no mercy now and it was as if they were facing an entirely different person than the one they all once knew. Why won't he stop? Ino thought as new tears began to stream from her eyes when she heard a loud crack followed by an agonizing scream for Chuji. A moment later, he staggered out of the dust for just a second, holding his right arm limp at his side. The look on his face was one of pure terror, and for a second his eyes met Ino's. Help. Chuji uttered just that one word, before a claw of red chakra lashed out and pulled him back into the cloud of dirt and debris to continue his beating. Every time he cried out, Ino felt like she was going to die, and still he yelled louder and louder. Stop. 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 Ino was silently screaming to herself. It soon became too much and she screamed. Stop it, Naruto. She shrieked, at the top of her lungs, her anguished cry piercing the air and silencing his laughter. If you still have any feelings left for me, please stop it. As if on cue, Chuji was thrown out of the dust and the bloodied and battered Akatsuki skidded to a halt right in front of her, still breathing, but just barely. As the dust finally settled, it revealed Naruto, who had a hand on his mask and in one swift motion removed it, revealing the stern, chiseled features of his face. Take them and leave, Naruto harshly ordered. Nah, Naruto-kun. Because of you and what we once had, even if it was a lie, I will spare them. Now go before I change my mind. Naruto's voice was full of pain as he spoke, and he slipped his mask back on, his eyes now reverting back to their cerulean blue color, as they stared briefly at Ino while the power of the Kyuubi faded away. Naruto-kun, please come back with me, I still love. Don't say it, I've heard that lie said to me 3 times before and I refuse to fall for it ever again. Just leave me alone, Ino, it should be easy enough for you to do. You did it 2 years ago, so just do it again. And tell Bar-chan the same when you get back, just leave me alone, that's all I want, is to be left alone. Naruto somberly stated, before turning on his heels and walking away. As Ino watched his figure slowly disappear down the dirt road, she exhaled a heavy sob and said to herself. It's not a lie, Naruto-kun, I do still love you, even if you'll never believe me again. As the dawn broke on a new day, Naruto awoke and his hand instantly went to the hilt of his blade when he felt a small weight on his chest. Looking down, he saw a young girl who was resting against him, and the memories of the day before flooded his mind in a torrent of images. Absently, Naruto ran his hand over the cracked skull-like cap that adorned her head over the young girl's green hair. The child in a tender moment yawned, while grabbing Naruto's black t-shirt and snuggled her face into his chest, whilst he wrapped the folds of his black traveling cloak around her. He shook his head ruefully, as it all came back to him, and he thought. I never thought I'd end up as a dad when I left the Leaf Village. Flashback. Naruto's journey to get to where he was going was proving not to be as easy of a task as he originally thought it would be. Thanks to the attack by the Inoshika Cho squad a couple of days ago. Instead of taking only 2 days to reach his destination, was now going to take 4 days. Naruto was also being further delayed because everywhere he went there were bandits, thieves, and other mercenaries coming out of the woodwork trying to attack and take whatever Naruto might possess on him. However, these rogues constantly attacking him never knew they had made the biggest mistake of their lives in doing so. Naruto actually enjoyed the brief battles with the fools that attacked him. However, they were so weak they proved little challenge if any at all to the blonde Junin, and though that was displeasing, he took great pleasure in killing the imbeciles, lest they do harm to any innocents in the future. Naruto took what he could from the bodies before incinerating them with a fire jutsu he had liberated, along with several other useful jutsu scrolls from the village library, before he took his leave of the leaf. Unfortunately, all Naruto could find amongst the now bloodied bodies he had killed were money, a few kunai, and a storage scroll that was empty. Not that it mattered, Naruto felt he could always fill it with anything he wanted given the chance or need to. Now it was quite full with money that he had taken off of several more prosperous bandits that he had first encountered, when he had set out from the wave. However, for now Naruto would use it by storing anything he had hunted, such as a dead rabbit here and there, or yesterday when he had captured a particularly stupid deer in one of his snare traps. Thanks to the storage scroll, the meat would stay fresh and juicy, just waiting to be cooked and eaten. The little girl stirring on his chest broke Naruto out of his musings, and his thoughts turned to the events of the past couple of days. As soon as Naruto walked a distance away from the Inoshika Cho team, he quickly teleported away and upon landing promptly collapsed both physically and mentally. Physically from overexerting himself in his fight against Chuji, and mentally at seeing Ino again, as it had been 2 years since she had betrayed his heart after being with him for a year prior. Ino, the final girl of the Trinity, each of whom had taken the turns decimating Naruto's heart. Seeing her again had brought back quite a lot of pain that Naruto had hoped he could keep buried, but never could. Doing his best to rebury his pain, Naruto trudged on, and after many hours of traveling the sun would soon be setting and Naruto decided it was time to rest for the day. Walking off the trail he heard an argument taking place and sensed several low chakra signatures in a field ahead of him. Upon reaching the clearing, Naruto saw that some bandits had engaged in fight with one another over some sort of dispute, though what exactly he wasn't sure. The way they act like animals, sickening. Naruto thought to himself, while growing both annoyed and tired of their fighting and killing of one another, as he marched towards them sword in hand. The bickering bandits never stood a chance and it was over in an instant. He had spared one, as this man's chakra signature was the strongest and Naruto thought he might be of use to him in the future for what he was planning for the Akatsuki. Naruto's gave the lone bandit a message along with the foreboding warning and coupled with the fact that he had been wearing his mask when he charged in out of nowhere and had easily slaughtered all of this man's comrades would ensure that his news was delivered. I want to meet with your boss. I know you're kind and you all follow one man. Tell him that I'm looking for employment. Give him my name. Naruto Uzumaki. If I do not hear from him or you in 3 days, I will personally find you, and make your existence hell on earth. Then, judging by the fearful look in the eyes of the bandit, he had added one last emphasis. And then I'll go after your wife. Needless to say, it had achieved the desired effect, as the tan muscle-bound man had gone as pale as a ghost and stammered. Why you know about my army? Naruto brought his face close now, his red and black eyes staring into the man's very soul, as his warped voice boomed out at him. Would you care to gamble that I do not know of her? The panicked bandit shook his head rapidly. He did not want to risk the life of his darling wife. Naruto's glare bore into his brown eyes for a second longer, until he pulled away, leaving a small flare in the trembling palms of the man, who instinctively clutched the small metal rod tightly, as if he thought the small device would shelter him. You seem to be a notch above your usual bandit, Naruto proclaimed in a mocking tone of voice. Testing the man to see if he could provoke a fight, he then added, you actually do have a brain. Anger flashed momentarily through the eyes of the bandit, but he controlled himself and did not make any move of aggression, knowing if he did, this demonic being of a man could kill him in an instant. It would seem that he wants to live. Good. Naruto thought to himself before he gestured to the flare in the man's hand and warned. Don't lose that, it may cost you your life if you do. If you have news regarding your leader's response, toss that high into the air. I will see it and then you shall see me gain, understand? The man nodded slowly, as he shakily rose to his feet, afraid of doing something that would result in his death. Gee, got it. He had sputtered, then took off running like the devil himself was hot on his heels. After Naruto determined that the goon would indeed deliver his message, he had decided to camp here for the night. Seeing as the fire the bandits had started was still roaring, Naruto decided he would rest a bit before looking for a spring or riverbed to wash the blood of his clothes, since if he walked around smelling like blood he would have to deal with the wild animals that roamed these parts as well. Just as Naruto was sitting down and getting comfortable, he heard off in the distance what sounded like a child's terrified scream. Leaping up to his feet, Naruto focused his chakra to try and sense where the child was. After a moment, he had pinpointed her location, but there wasn't one chakra signature but two. Racing off to find out what was going on, Naruto grumbled to himself, as another distraction was something he did need at that moment. However, he knew that for as much as he had closed his emotions and heart off from people, he was not so far gone that he would let an innocent child be harmed, not if he could prevent it. Racing through the forest at lightning speed, Naruto suddenly came upon a clearing and one of the most peculiar sights he had ever seen. Out in the field ahead of him was a strange, thin-looking man with long greasy black hair and two horns, one of which was broken, protruding from his head. The man also bore some type of skull-like mask that nearly covered the entire left side of his face. The strange man also bore a huge crisscross X scar across his chest. However, the most bizarre feature of the man was the fact that he bore 3 stumps instead of arms on the left side of his body and 2 stumps on the right side. The only reason Naruto was able to deduce that the stumps had been arms was due to the fact that the middle arm remained on the right side of the man's body and was holding some type of scythe-like weapon. The blonde Jinchuriki watched with fascination as the emaciated-looking man swung his weapon downwards, as he chased after something. It was then Naruto saw what the man was chasing was a terrified little girl in a simple green gown running for her life. Naruto's eyes narrowed with rage at this, and when he saw the young girl stumble and fall, he disappeared with a yellow flash instantly. Nell, it's time for you to finally die, you little bitch. Noitra Gilga shouted with glee, as he swung his transformed Zanpakuto in a murderous arc towards the little girl lying on the ground. Clank. The sound of metal hitting metal echoed in Nell Tuodelschwank's ears, as she had closed her eyes and waited for the blow that would end her life. Tentatively opening her eyes, the little green-haired girl was greeted with a sight that confused her. There, standing between her and Noitra, was a strange man dressed in black with blonde hair and wearing a mask similar to the one atop her own head. This man also held a huge Zanpakuto that was blocking Noitra's scythe blade from descending any further. As the former Espada Arrancar No. 5 and the former Leaf Junin glared at one another, both were exerting pressure against the other with their blades. Unable to overpower this blonde stranger, Noitra hissed in anger at the man. I don't know who you are, but this doesn't concern you, human. Leave now and I will let live. Humph. Brave words, Spider-Man, or should I just call you Stumpy, considering the majority of your arms have already been hacked off. Foolish human, let me attend to my business with that trembling little bitch behind you, and once I've absorbed her powers, I'll regrow my limbs and show you why you should have left when I offered it to you. Then I'll track down that jingle bell-haired wearing freak who did this to me and finish him off as well. I'm afraid I can't do that, Stumpy. I highly doubt killing a little girl is going to get you what you claim. Besides, if that's what it takes for you to gain power, it's probably better that I just finish you off now. Fool, that little girl isn't even human, she's an Arrancar as am I, and you have no idea the power we possess when we are at full strength. He's right, Kit, I've heard of these Arrancars and I can sense great power in the little girl, but it remains dormant and I don't think she knows how to access it. I'd advise not letting this guy succeed in killing her and gaining that power. Kyuubi's voice echoed a warning in Naruto's brain. I hadn't intended on letting him succeed. Naruto replied out loud. What? Sorry, Stumpy, I was talking to someone else. Anyway, back to you, I don't give a damn if that little girl is a human, an Arrancar, or whatever. I'm telling you to walk away, because I won't let you kill her. So I suggest you take up my offer or suffer the consequences. Noitra's response was to leap back several feet and bring his transformed Zanpakuto up into an attack position before he spat with malevolence and hate. Meddlesome human, I'm going to enjoy killing you. Yeah, whatever. Tell me something, you say you can regrow your arms, but can you regrow your head? What? That was the last word Noitra was able to say before Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash and appeared in front of the startled Arrancar, swinging his Zanpakuto and instantly cutting through Noitra's side and his neck in one fluid motion. Nell, who had been watching the entire scene both in fascination and fear, uttered one word in shock, as her former Espada comrade's head rolled off of his body and fell to the ground. Noi. Tra. It was then that Nell finally succumbed to the stress she had been going through and passed out, much to Naruto's chagrin, as he looked down at her sleeping form and thought to himself. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Quit whining and take her back to your camp, Kit. You and I both know you won't leave her out here by herself. A little while later, back at his camp, Naruto sat down on the ground with his back against a nearby tree. Naruto gazed at Nell sleeping peacefully on his bedroll. Meanwhile, the Kyuubi no Yuko was praising the boy for his merciless slaughter of Noitra and was proud of the smooth and effortless grace it had been executed. Good work, Kit. You've done this old fox proud. Naruto just heaved a weary sigh, whilst he leaned back against the tree, resting the sore skin of his back against it. It wasn't to please you, damn fox, I just can't stand the thought of anyone preying upon defenseless innocent lives, not while I'm around. Well, if you're so damn noble, Kit, then why are you planning on joining a group of thieves and murderers who do just that? Because I need an army, and one hell of an army at that, if I plan to go to the land of spring and free Kyuki and her people from the Akatsuki. So, I need to find some potential allies, and this Bandit King and the men he leads I've heard so much about these past few days sound exactly like what I require to create that army. An interesting and creative plan, it has merit. And with any army going to battle, there should be lots of blood and death, which I enjoy. I wish I could join you on the battlefield were I not sealed up in this blasted body by your father. Naruto chuckled as he threw a nearby twig into the fire, enjoying the sound of the roaring flames and the welcomed heat that it brought to him. You were the one who attacked the Leaf Village. You already know that wasn't my fault, but that damn Madara Uchiha. Naruto nodded silently in agreement and tossed more broken branches into the flames. He then checked his blade for any dents and scratches from his fights of the past few days. Looking at the firelight that reflected off of the impressive weapon, Naruto realized that Zabuza's Zanpakuto was the perfect reminder of the path that he had now chosen to walk. Once he had freed the Spring Country and eliminated the Akatsuki, he would forge his own destiny and go where he pleased, leaving everything else up to fate. A few hours later, Nell awoke to smell of food being cooked in a pot. Sitting up and wrapping her arms around her legs, she looked around with trepidation and wondered where she was. "Are you hungry, little one?" Nell squeaked in surprise at hearing the metallic echo of a voice and looked over to see that same mask-wearing man who had saved her from Neutra stirring a blackened pot over a fire. The little Arrancar wasn't sure about this strange man, but for some reason she wasn't afraid of him. As Naruto scooped a healthy portion of whatever he had been cooking onto a plate, he brought it over and placed it in front of Nell along with a cup of water. Walking back over to the steaming pot, Naruto then dished out a portion of food for himself and sat down across from his newest companion, taking off his mask and revealing his face to her before saying, "Go ahead, little one, eat. I may not be the best cook in the world, but I promise it is edible." Nell hesitated for a moment and sniffed the food carefully before deciding it was okay, and grabbing a sizable chunk of the food in her cherub little hand stuffed it into her mouth, causing her cheeks to comically puff out. Naruto chuckled at this sight before pointing at his fork and saying, "No need to eat so much in one bite, you can use a fork like I do, little one." "Little one, I can't keep calling you that, what's your name?" The little Arrancar in question looked up at the much larger man with curiosity, as to why Naruto asked for her name. In further response to his question, she tilted her slightly to the side, as she studied Naruto's face with scrutiny. Naruto was indeed confused about the young girl's reaction to him. For one thing, she didn't seem afraid of him or his mask, and considering she had witnessed him decapitate someone, that non-reaction was indeed surprising to the blonde Jinchuriki. However, before he could ponder about the little girl any further, Naruto heard a whispery voice, one he had heard once before, the one that had told him to take up Zabuza's blade as his own. It was too soft to understand what the voice was saying, as Naruto strained to recognize them before a voice softly called out, breaking his concentration. "My name is Nell too Odelschwank, but most people call me Nell too." "Nell too, that's a pretty name for a pretty girl. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, but most people call me Naruto." Nell blushed at Naruto calling her pretty and stammered, You think I'm pretty, nah Naruto? I think you're very pretty, Nell-chan, can I call you Nell-chan?" Nell nodded her head and smiled before Naruto continued on. "Nell-chan, can you tell me where you're from, and do you have any parents or loved ones who are looking for you?" A sad and forlorn visage spread across Nell's face, and Naruto could see tears welling in her eyes, as she answered in a choked voice. "And Nell is from a place called Los Noches, but I don't want to go back, it's not a nice place. Nell doesn't have parents or anyone looking for her. Ichigo, Pesh, Dondokaka, Bawabawa, they're all gone from the Arrancar war with the Tool Tosiati. Nell is all alone and hath been for a long time." Naruto could hear the same painful tone in Nell's voice that his own held when he spoke about his own loneliness, and at that moment debated what he should do. "Just take the kid as your own and be done with it, you aren't going to leave her alone and you know it." Kyubi grumbled in annoyance. Groaning to himself upon realizing Kyubi was probably right, Naruto turned back to look down at the little girl and asked, "You really don't have anyone, Nell-chan?" Nell only sniffled and kept her head bowed down before softly saying, "Nell has no one anymore. What should I do?" Naruto thought with confusion. Meanwhile, Kyubi had decided his vessel's musings on the subject were growing quite irritating. So he took it upon himself to flash an image of Nell sitting in the woods alone at night with several pairs of menacing eyes peering all around her in the dark into Naruto's mind. "That's a damn dirty low blow, you bastard fox," Naruto shouted angrily within his head. "Says you kit." At this point Naruto exhaled a heavy sigh of resignation. The Kyubi's little picture had done the trick, and Naruto knew he couldn't just leave her here, but then again he wasn't exactly good parent material, but what choice did he have? How can I be a father to someone when I'm a kid myself? Considering what I've been doing lately and what I'm going to be doing, I'm not exactly the ideal father a girl should have. Come on kid, show some spine. If this kid can handle seeing you lop off the head of someone and isn't freaked out by that mask you wear or the creepy voice it gives you, Then I'd say she isn't going to mind what you have planned just so long as you two are together. Naruto knelt down and cupped Nell's chin so he could look at her and said with sincerity. Nell-chan, if you don't want to be alone anymore, you can come with me. Would you like that? Nell looked up wide-eyed and trembled a bit, as the chance to no longer be alone excited her. She liked this Naruto and wanted to stay with him, but then she remembered Ichigo and the others she had lost and suddenly grew scared at the prospect of losing Naruto. The blonde Jinchuriki noticed this change in Nell's demeanor and in a comforting voice asked. What's wrong, Nell-chan? Do you not wish to be with me? Nell would like to be with you very much, Naruto, but Nell is scared. What will happen to Nell if you go away like Ichigo and the others? Nell still misses them, and if you were to go away like them, Nell would be all alone once again. I promise you, Nell-chan, I won't go away like Ichigo and the others. You promise. The promise of a lifetime, Nell, I swear. Nell smiled brightly before leaping up and hugging Naruto tightly. For the next few minutes Naruto and his surrogate daughter giggled and played before each of them yawned in perfect unison, both of their mouths opening wide at the exact same moment. Naruto saw this and chuckled a bit, before patting the ground next to him. Come here. End of flashback. And that was how it happened that Naruto had gained a little Arrancar girl named Nell as a daughter. As he looked down at Nell asleep and snuggling up to him in his lap, she looked quite content from what he could determine from her happy face. However, as content as Nell was, Naruto was still worried about the situation he had gotten himself into, as he thought with concern. A daughter must always be protected by her father, Naruto mused, before wondering what on earth he was going to do now. Becoming a father hadn't exactly been part of his plan, and yet here he was, a single father, without any real say in the matter. I don't mind taking care of her, I just don't know how. Naruto thought to himself before letting out a sigh, as he closed his eyes to think, only for them to open again about a minute later when he felt a tug on his shirt. He got a surprising sight as he reopened them. The girl was now amazingly awake and with life-filled eyes looking at him for attention, which Naruto didn't really know how to give since he had no experience whatsoever in being a parent. Are you hungry, Nell-chan? The blonde Jinchuriki asked, before he saw a quick nod from the girl and the sound of two stomachs grumbling that made them both blush in embarrassment. Letting out a laugh, he patted her on the head before lifting her gently off his lap as he stood up and placed her on his left shoulder before handing her a ration bar he had scavenged off a dead bandit. Nell didn't seem to mind as she clapped her tiny hands together several times before eating the meal, not minding the lack taste in her mouth, as these things were pretty bland. She also clearly enjoyed being able to see things at a much higher altitude. She now pumped a tiny fist into the air, and gave a loud declaration all her own, yet very familiar in its own right, as a certain blonde had often shouted it at the top of his lungs. Let's go, Naruto, believe it. Naruto stumbled in surprise, as he heard his own once favorite saying coming from the mouth of this little girl who he had now taken under his wing as her father. But then he calmed himself and shrugged his shoulders in amusement, before gathering his things and with Nell perched on his shoulder, set off towards the road to continue his journey once more. Naruto's new daughter was practically bouncing up and down on his shoulder with unrestrained energy, as they walked. Upon reaching the road, Naruto knelt down and got into a runner's crouch, before giving his daughter a quick glance and saying, Okay, Nell-chan, let's go. Hopefully we can find some place to eat soon, and with decent food. Naruto then put his mask back on and added, Hang on tight, we've lost a lot of time and I have to run fast to make up for it, okay? Okie dokie. Leth goo. Nell eagerly replied, her eyes sparkling with life and energy, as she nodded her head in agreement. She's certainly energetic, Naruto thought with enjoyment before he pushed off the ground with both hands and feet and sped down the road with Nell squealing with joy at going so fast and at such a height. Why? Naruto skidded to a halt, as he heard a voice seemingly whispering in his mind. His feet dug into the ground and kicked up a large cloud of dust, causing Nell to cough, as he looked to the left and right. Naru-kun, cough, why did we, cough, stop? He looked around rapidly, as the dust began to clear. Something was present, but he could not see it, only sense it. Do you feel that? Naruto internally asked his tenant. I feel nothing, you must be paranoid, Kit. Perhaps we should find an inn, so you can rest yourself fully. Naruto shook his head, drawing a confused look from Nell as he did so, while silently declaring. I don't need sleep. I'm wide awake, and someone or something is present with us. I sense no one. Naruto was beginning to grow frustrated, as he could not find this strange presence that seemed to be observing him, and that he alone was aware of. Well, I do. Now shut up so I can concentrate on finding it. The demon lord snorted in contempt before he grumbled his agreement. Very well, I shall be silent for now. Free of any more voices in his head, the rogue nin closed his eyes and stood stone still for a moment. As Naruto concentrated, his adoptive daughter's voice began to fade into the background, as he looked about for anything out of the ordinary, not with his eyes or ears, but with his spirit. Naruto felt something, but it was a ways off and not moving. Was it a threat? He could not be sure. But someone or something was there. Who goes there? The blonde Jinchuriki shouted in his mind. Unfortunately, the only answer he received was nothing. This was growing tiresome, and with a sigh, Naruto reverted himself back into normal vision and opened his eyes to find Nell still perched on his shoulder peering down at him, her hazel-colored eyes filled with both curiosity and concern. Naru-kun, are you okay? Naruto gave a rueful smile, as he reached up to ruffle Nell's green hair, causing her to giggle. I'm fine, Nell too, I was just looking for someone. The little Arrancar frowned at Naruto's forlorn look before leaning over and giving him a small kiss on the forehead like any good daughter would do, and asked. Is Naru-kun lonely? Does he need a wife-chan? Naruto nearly stumbled to the ground and blushed at his surrogate daughter's question, as he exclaimed with exasperation. Nell too, I can't just grab a wife-chan out of the blue. Why not? Was little Nell's inquisitive response. Naruto grumbled under his breath, as a tick mark appeared on his head. Already annoyed by not being able to locate that mysterious presence he felt, Naruto accidentally shouted at Nell in a fierce snarl of a voice, as he reached for his mask. Because that's not the way things work. Nell sniffled and tears began to form in her eyes, causing his hand to halt. And Nell didn't mean to make Naru-kun angry. He mentally smacked himself across the face. You stupid barker. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Now look what you did. Desperate not to make her cry, Naruto did the only thing he could possibly think of, as it looked like the invisible dam that held her tears back was about to burst wide open any moment now. So he changed the mood by reaching up to grab her, and in an instant he had gotten her under the arms, causing her sniffles to stop, as she wondered what he was about to do. Naruto gave Nell a wicked grin. As he did so, she stuck out her tongue in response, setting the stage for what he had planned. Come here, you. Naruto cackled, and then he was mercilessly tickling her, causing the little Arrancar to squeal with laughter, as she howled with merriment. Naru-kun. That tickles. Exactly. BWHAHAHA. After 2 minutes of the torture, Naruto decided that Nell had enough and stopped his tickle attack, leaving her laughter to slowly fade away, as she gasped for air. Taking a moment to catch his own breath, he wondered what it was that had brought this all about in the first place. Then it hit him, like a boot to the face from Rock Lee. Suddenly, out of nowhere he got a flashback, or to be more precise, flashbacks. Blurred images and memories, as they roared through his head at warp speed. Memory flashback number 1. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I can no longer be with you. What are you talking about, Hinata-chan? My father has put me into an arranged marriage. I will be getting married next week. Married? What do you mean? With who? Hinata finally forced herself to gaze up and see the look of pain etched on Naruto's face. She reached up to touch his cheek and with tears in her eyes softly said. With Kiba-san. Kiba? But you don't love Kiba, you love me. It doesn't matter who I love, Naruto-kun. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Of course it matters. And no, it doesn't, because next week I will be getting married to Kiba and nothing can change that. Of course we can change that, Hinata-chan. We'll go to Bar-chan soon for help, or we can just run away together. But you don't have to get married to Kiba, especially when you don't love him. You don't have to do this, you love me and I love you. Naruto looked down and saw the pained sadness on Hinata's face, before leapt into his arms, and he had held her so tight, afraid to let her go, as she wept into his chest and in a choked voice said. I'm sorry, but Lady Tsunade can't do anything and I have to marry Kiba, I have no choice. You do have a choice. Why don't you stand up to father and tell him no? Because I can't. Why? Naruto shouted in frustration with tears rolling down his cheeks, before pushing Hinata away from him. I'm sorry, Naru-kun, I can't tell you why. I want to say no to this marriage, but I can't refuse my father on this matter. You mean you won't refuse your father as always? Naruto spat with disgust. Please believe me, Naru-kun. I do love you with all of my heart and soul. Hinata exclaimed in desperation. Yeah, you love me, but just not enough to refuse your father or your clan of getting married to someone else. Goodbye, Hina-chan. I hope you will have a happy life. Naruto bitterly declared before he turned around and walked away, leaving Hinata weeping uncontrollably on the ground. End of flashback number 1. Naruto remembered the feelings of grief that had overwhelmed him, the pain, the loss, so much to bear, too much to remember, as he saw other images flash through his head. Memory flashback number 2. I love you, Ino-chan. I'm sorry I wasn't able to say those words to you 6 months ago when you uttered them to me. I was too scared and wrapped up in the pain of what had happened with Hinata. But you asked me to give you a chance and I'm so glad I did. Being with you has saved me from the pain and despair I thought would never go away. I know this seems sudden, but you were right, Ino-chan, you are the one that I can love. And I do love you, Ino-chan. Naruto then leaned over and gently placed his soft lips against hers. This was difficult for Ino to resist. She liked how his lips felt when it touched hers, the way it lit a fire in her soul. But she couldn't do this. She couldn't, no matter how much she enjoyed it. Naruto. Ino coughed out in a choked voice while breaking off the kiss. I'm not in love with you anymore. She cried out, tears running down her face. Naruto stood rigid and motionless looking at her, the hurt evident in his voice as he found the words. What do you mean you don't love me anymore? You told me you loved me. Did I do something, Ino-chan? Please tell me what it is and I can fix it. You didn't do anything, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, Naruto-kun. I still love you as a friend, but it can never be more than that. Why, Ino-chan, please tell me why. I'm in love with someone else. Ino exclaimed, more in an attempt to convince herself rather than the now broken boy standing before her. At that moment Shikamaru stepped out from the shadows of the trees and sheepishly walked over to stand next to the weeping Kunoichi. Naruto glanced back and forth between his friend who couldn't look him in the eye and his now blonde ex-girlfriend before reaching down and placing her hand into the Nara boy's hand. Ino was taken aback when Naruto did this and she looked up and gasped in shock at the visage Naruto now bore upon his face. Ino gazed at Naruto and noticed a brief flicker of pain flash through his eyes, before he dropped the engagement ring onto the ground and was walking away into the night in silence. End of flashback. Then another image flashed across his mind, one of Sakura rushing past him towards Sasuke to attend to his injuries when he had brought the Uchiha back and fulfilled his promise to the girl. What pathetic bullshit. A voice rang out inside his head, but not that of the Kyuubi. This voice was dripping with venom and disdain, as Naruto suddenly found himself standing on a white plain. All around him were images of his time with Sakura, Hinata, and Ino flying everywhere, as if he were caught in the middle of this storm of his past. Who are you? Naruto asked, as more images of his past roared through his head. In response, a dark silhouette appeared indistinguishable at the moment, but with a dark, ominous, and deadly aura to it. I never thought sifting through your head would be such a chore. You really are an idiot at times, as your women did a number on you. Naruto frowned as he clenched his hands into fists, all the while receiving images, all of the mistakes that he had made in his past. Whatever you are, why are you making me relive this? An image of him letting Ino go and putting Shikamaru's hand in hers, while walking away without a word. Screaming his fury at Sakura, before he finally snapped and went rogue. Standing outside of the temple at Hinata's wedding, unable to object or stop the proceedings, but wanting so very badly to do so. Catching a fleeting glimpse through the window of Hinata and she of him and how her pale eyes had looked deep into his, the sadness evident within him before she turned her gaze away from his. Grief overcame Naruto, as he placed his hands over his ears, while the voice droned on in his head. I truly am disappointed. The figure then began to take shape and Naruto nearly fell backward in shock, as it was revealed to be that of Momouchi Zabuza himself. But something was different about him. Gone was his usual outfit and harsh attitude. Now, he just seemed disappointed and sad, while as for his outfit it consisted of what appeared to be a black kimono. Are you the one who's been talking to me? Zabuza snorted, and the sneer could be seen through the wrappings he wore over the lower half of his face. Oh look, we have a winner. Why are you doing this to me? Naruto pleadingly asked. Zabuza pointed his free hand at him, one finger jabbing the rogue nin in the chest. I let you take this weapon for your own because I remembered your wall of fire from years ago when you battled me and Haku. I thought you would prove to a better master of it than I ever was. But if these little memories of your women playing you for the fool are too much for you to handle, then perhaps I may have overestimated you. Naruto's head snapped up, revealing him glaring furiously at the dead nin, and Zabuza could feel the massive killer intent directed towards him. The blonde Jinchuriki's voice was laced with hate, sadness, determination, and so much more. I may have made some mistakes with the women I've chosen to love, some really stupid mistakes, but I've put that behind me. Right now, I have a friend who needs my help and I won't be done in by some old rotting corpse of a ninja. The next words of the infamous demon of the mist threw Naruto off balance despite his iron determination. I'm not an old rotting corpse of a ninja, I'm the soul or spirit of that ninja. I only exist within the confines of my Zanpakuto, which you now wield. Because you now hold my blade, I'm able to link up with your mind alone. That's why your furry tenant and no one else in the living world can sense me. Then what do you want of me? What I want is to see my blade reach its full potential in power, and I think you might have what it takes to unlock the true capabilities of my blade. You certainly show more promise in doing that than I ever did when I was alive. A second later, the blade appeared in the hand of Naruto, who spun it about and sheathed it into the strap on his back. Why did you contact me like this, and why the torture session of those memories? Because I can only contact you once before I fade away to another plane of existence. As for the memories you suffered, I needed to know if you would be mentally and emotionally strong enough to handle what is to come. To be honest, I'm still not fully convinced that you are, but I have little choice now. Take this. Zabuza handed him a piece of parchment, the tan paper old and worn with age, and yet somehow, it still miraculously held itself together. Gently unfolding the parchment, Naruto saw it was a series of land markings and paths written out on it. It was a dot map. Confused, he looked up at Zabuza, who began to fade away, as if beckoned by some unseen cue. Oi, what's with the map? Listen well. Follow that map. It will lead you to an old hideaway of mine. When last I checked, it was still in pretty decent condition. You will meet a man there. Show him that blade and he will let you pass. From there on you will start your journey to unlock the power of your Zanpakuto. A power you will need for your upcoming battles if you wish to save your friend. Zabuza was still fading away, as was the white plane upon which the two of them had stood. He was nearly gone now and he wasn't saying anything else. Futilely, Naruto reached out for him, but his hand passed right through the apparition, as he called out to the fading nin. Hey, I've still got some questions for you. However, Zabuza's spirit had disappeared and his voice echoed after his now out-of-sight body. Those are not for me to answer, farewell. Naruto's eyes snapped open, and he sucked in a ragged breath. Nell was still talking and Naruto realized that what had seemed like minutes in speaking with Zabuza's spirit had only been a few seconds in real time. Naruto also felt something, and looking down he saw it was the map that Zabuza had given him in his hand. As the blonde missing nin stared at the piece of paper in his hand, Nell stopped talking when her intensely curious gaze now locked on the scratched headband he wore about his neck. Ooh. What's that? Naruto blinked, as he felt a tug on the headband and felt the fabric slip past his neck as it came loose, but he paid no heed to it, as he was still trying to comprehend what had just happened. Only a few seconds passed here, yet it felt like I spent 10 minutes, in whatever that place was. Nell was oblivious to her adoptive father's musings and was fixated on the shiny metal Hitai she held, as she ran her hands over it lovingly like it was a new toy. Wow, this is really pretty, can I keep it, Naru-kun? Hearing Nell's question brought Naruto out of his contemplation, and staring down at her he soon recovered himself. Smiling as she stared hopefully up at him, Naruto knelt down and placed her back on his shoulder and said, You want to wear my headband? Nell nodded eagerly as she hung it down in front of his face. The little Arrancar answered before her face fell, as she realized something. But I don't know how to tie a knot. Naruto gave a small sigh, as he took the headband from her. Hold still. 1 minute later, Nell bore a sparkling smile upon her face, as her new scratched headband was shining brightly from around her throat just as Naruto had worn it. As Naruto ran down the road following the map that he had been given, his surrogate daughter squealed in delight. This is the best, thanks Naru-kun. You're welcome. Naruto mumbled, as he took a left at a nearby river running alongside the fast-moving water. Where did we get the map? Was yet another inquisitively curious query from Nell. From a friend of mine. When are we going to get breakfast? Soon. How long? Oh boy. This is gonna be a long day. Naruto silently thought, as he rolled his eyes. As he ran into the morning light, he grinned with amusement, as his adopted daughter Nell giggled with laughter from the speed he was running and chided him on. Faster Naru-kun. Faster. Naruto chuckled before some of the Kyuubi no Yuko's red chakra misted about him, lending him more power and speed. Hold on Nell-chan, this could get a bit rough. The little green-haired Arrancar gripped his shoulders tightly, once more her eyes filled with eager excitement and anticipation, as the light glistened off her headband. Yaay, let's go. Then, as if it was even possible, Naruto kicked his speed up yet another notch, rendering him and his new daughter a black and green blur to all that might have seen them. Uchiha Madara frowned as he sat in the throne room of Princess Yukiya Fujika's. It had been well over a week since the Yukiya's vassals had made contact with the Kyuubi no Yuko container in Wave Country according to Zetsu. However, Zetsu further reports that Naruto has yet to show up at the boat to bring him to the land of spring. It would appear that he smelled a trap. Sly little devil, Madara thought to himself. Apparently, that stupid Jinchuriki was no longer the imbecile he once was. For if he had been, then the barker should have come running here as fast as his legs or a boat could take him. Naruto had always been headstrong and should have been easy prey for the remaining members of Akatsuki to capture. Alas, this was not so, and for not the first time in his life the first Uchiha cursed himself for founding that blasted village along with the first Hokage. Apparently somewhere along the way, this stupid Gaki had learned caution and now seemed to be exercising a great deal of it. Looks like this won't be as easy as I thought. Don't think I've forgotten our little game, Uzumaki. You may have gotten smarter since the war, but I will have my revenge, and once I have you in my clutches. A sinister cackle escaped him, as he gazed upon the havoc that he had wreaked throughout the land of spring, which was now covered once more in deadly blizzards, and lethal avalanches. Sooner or later he would have to come. Although the Kyuubi brat may have become wary of a trap, he would not leave a friend in need. You will perish. His ranting was interrupted, as he felt the presence of Zetsu behind him, causing him to pause, and stare out into the snowy night from the lone window before him. Yes, what is it? The plant man hesitated a moment before speaking, both of his halves equally fearful to deliver the news that he was about to speak. Madara cut him off, as he stamped a steel-toed boot into the icy floor of the room, cracking it, and making the base shudder ever so slightly. His back was still turned, but you didn't need to see his face to know that he was not happy. You lost her, didn't you? Zetsu gave a stiff nod, and prepared himself for the worst, as he raised a hand in front of his face, to ward off a potential attack, fearing that his death had come. It never came. Leader-sama, was his nervous query, as he waited for an answer from the radically powerful Uchiha, who was not moving an inch. Tell Sugetsu and Deidara to continue their pursuit of her. Failure will not be tolerated. I want her found. Now. The deadly tone in his voice almost made Zetsu feel sorry for the two Akatsuki members. He gave a grateful bow, then turned to make his exit. Naruto looked at the map and groaning muttered to himself. Go through the abandoned factory. What the hell? Nell seemed more excited and asked. What the factory? The scene was a grey and dreary one. A dark and abandoned factory set against the backdrop of the morning sun coated in mist. The only sign remaining of a long abandoned village that had stood quietly amongst the forest. It was peaceful despite the dull grey of the former plant, which stood out now amongst nature. However, that tranquil peace was soon shattered, as a section of the third floor was burst open, leaving a massive hole, from which a streak of grey and yellow leapt. The figure hit the ground with a loud thud, and the sheer force of her all forced her to one knee, as she had now broken something in her left leg. She wore a ragged outfit that was in tatters, and her left arm hung loosely at her side, as it had been broken before she had smashed a hole in the wall. Fear was all over her face as she pressed a glowing green hand of chakra to her twisted ankle, calming the swelling, as she looked every which way, panic in her eyes. For just a moment, she dared to hope that she had lost them. She was wrong. Then, as if in slow motion, two figures in Akatsuki cloaks landed behind her, unfazed from their fall, whilst she was out of breath, and badly hurt. The one who held a sword sneered down at her, as she looked over her shoulder at him, fear all over her. Looks like you're out of luck. The other Akatsuki member Deidara smirked, as he reached into his clay pouch. She was running for dear life, but it looks like her time's up, huh? You gave us a lot of trouble back there. Frightened as she was, the woman still found the nerve to spit in the face of her captor, who gave her a disgusted look, as he wiped off the saliva. You little bitch. Deidara spat in anger. Sugetsu frowned at her defiance and unsheathed Samehada. Raising the infamous sharkskin scaled blade in his hand, Sugetsu once again felt grateful that Madara had blessed him with one of the legendary 7 swords of the mist after its original owner Hoshigaki Kisame had been killed during the 4th Great Shinobi War. The young dark blonde woman stiffened, as she felt the rough skin of his shark-like blade on her neck. Help. She muttered weakly, but of course no one came. Naruto's ears pricked up. Help. Deidara laughed aloud. Help? Who would want to help a Jinchuriki? As the sword headed towards her in a downward arc and in a moment of desperation something inside of her snapped. Get away! She screamed. Instantly, a blue aura surrounded her and from that cloak-like chakra 2 tails burst forth, as her appearance became more feral, whilst the sheer intensity of her energy forced them back and away from her, as she screamed with fury at her 2 pursuers. Leave me alone. But then much to her horror the blue chakra cloak flickered out a second later, as exhaustion took its toll and left her gasping for breath and barely able to stand. Looking down at her hands, she felt her brief glimmer of hope fade away along with all feeling in her legs, as her knees buckled. And no, she stammered, as her knees hit the ground, and just barely was she able to summon enough strength to catch herself on her hand, let alone try to summon forth the chakra again. She had nothing left. Sugetsu chuckled, as the chakra leaked into the bandages that wrapped his blade. Thanks for the meal. Calmly he strode forward, sword in hand. Now, since you won't behave, I think I need to take an arm. Time seemed to slow, as he raised his blade up and his jagged teeth formed a cruel smile on his face. The flow of time returned, and he swung his sword down. The defeated woman just closed her eyes, and waited for the pain. It never came, as she heard a fierce snarl and then a surprised cry. Fearfully, she opened her eyes and got the shock of her life. There was a tall blonde-haired man standing before her and he was holding back the blade of Sugetsu with his own impressive sword. An amused grin appeared on his face, while Nell watched in safety from her hiding place in a nearby tree. With his other hand, he reached across to his mask and slowly, deliberately slid it on, indicating that he was in battle mode, as he sarcastically asked in a hollow metallic echo of a voice. Mind if I join the party, boys? The young woman was in dull shock, as a shadow clone of her savior helped her to her feet. Someone had heard her after all. Tsunade was horrified as she received the news from Ino and asked with disbelief. He knocked out Shikamaru and beat up Chuji so badly that he's now in a coma. The Yamanaka heiress nodded sadly. It had taken her 3 days to bring her injured teammates back to the Leaf Village. Ino was tired mentally, physically, and emotionally from this ordeal with Naruto. Yes, was all Ino could softly say due to her fatigue. Tsunade shook her head in mute shock before her gaze fell to a picture of Jiraiya and Naruto sitting on her desk, as she commented with sadness. He's changed these past few years, he's not the Naruto we knew, not anymore. Hokage-sama, I would like to request permission to pursue Naruto. I might be able to. Tsunade slammed her hands down upon the desk, as Ino winced from the explosive interruption. Absolutely not, you're part of the damn reason why he's like this. You are by no means to go after him. In fact, after what's happened, I should recall Team Guy before they encounter him. A knock was heard at the door, and she turned her wrath upon it. What is it? Tsunade roared, as she was in no mood for any pleasantries whatsoever. An anxious Anbu burst through the door, unaware of the current situation. Lady Hokage Tsunade, we have learned Hinata Inuzuka has gone missing and left the Leaf Village within the past few days. We only learned of this when we caught several Inuzuka clan members attempting to leave the village in pursuit of her. Under Anbu questioning, her husband and the Inuzuka clan heir Kiba Inuzuka believes that she has gone off in pursuit of the missing nin Naruto Uzumaki. For a moment nothing happened, as an eerie pall of silence fell over the Hokage's office before a shout erupted from the buxom blonde Hokage that seemed to echo throughout the Leaf Village. What? That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.